Now this is one of the scary things. So about 10 years ago, we actually didn't have much in the way of research or statistics to help us understand, well, why are we still having these problems? Because dogs have been associated with people for years. In some recent excavations where I live, they've found remains of dogs and cats going back 3,000–4,000 years of living with people. So this was some work that was jointly done between the Kennel Club, Hampshire County Council and the Countryside Agency in England, as it was now Natural England, to actually find out what are dog owners looking for when they go for a walk. And here and in repeated other stories, for the majority of people, off-lead access is the single most important thing. Other things are important as well, be it poo bins or being away from traffic or this sort of thing, but actually off-lead access for the majority is important. For some, they particularly like on-lead areas, potentially if they've got a dog which is recovering from an operation or doesn't like other dogs running up to it. So it's not saying everybody's the same, it's about offering choice. But you can see already if we've got livestock or ground nesting birds or whatever it may be, actually you can see how this comes about and why, for example, those of you that were involved in the implementation of open access through the Countryside and Rights of Way Act and 10 years ago, or even on sites, sometimes people would say to me, oh, well, all we're asking people to do is keep their dogs on a lead. Well, actually, that is a big ask, whether you like it or not. Now, if there's somewhere else they can take it, that can well work, but it's just getting across that, the restriction might be really worthwhile, but it is a big ask because you're asking people not to do often the single most important thing they came to do. Just as much as you've got an issue with horse riders to say, yes, you can come with your horse, but you can only walk at the side of it. You may think that's appropriate in some situations, and it might be. But actually, it is a big ask. But we can work with that because we can also use that to influence what people do. Another pressure which is seeming to cause problems, because actually the numbers of dogs have been fairly static, but people are generally saying, oh, there's more dogs. And all the statistics are actually saying, no, there's the same number of dogs, but they're being concentrated into ever smaller places, which is why it feels as a bigger issue. And this was some work that was done in Winchester in Hampshire because, again, they got some issues with grazing animals there. So they decided to work with dog owners to find out actually what's going on. Because I can tell you that dog owners are looking for hassle-free walks to relax and to enjoy their time with their dog. Nobody's going out to say, actually, that last dog walk was a bit boring. Why don't we liven it up by walking through a field of sheep? That isn't where their mindset's going. They're trying to have a good, relaxing dog walk. But actually sometimes they don't have the right information or opportunity to avoid conflict. And this work that was done, this was done through the Local Access Forum, and they got local dog walkers to survey where they could go, what they could do in the community. One of the issues that was coming up was that a number didn't know actually other places to go, but also one of the key things that came out was where there was new housing or new developments or changes in land management, is that actually what happened was that they were denied access to one place. So actually that made things worse in terms of finding where they could walk with their dogs or avoid hassle. But also because we know that, in Wales, nearly a third of all homes have a dog in them, you build more houses, so you've got less green space and more dogs trying to take access. So you can see how that can bring up problems. Some other work, this was done in a slightly similar way to as happened with Wales and your coast path in England. They're looking to increase coastal access and doing it gradually around England. They've not got theirs finished like you have in Wales. But they were looking at doing some work with dog owners because they were looking at actually saying in some places we would need to restrict access to beaches or where, say, terns were nesting in spring or whatever it was. And we're asking dog owners about, well, what would happen and where would you go if you couldn't go on this bit of coastal access? And about just over a quarter said they would walk their dog less often. About 17% said they were less likely to get another dog. Which then has impacts on actually the health benefits of having a dog and extra burdens on the NHS. But actually the majority would say, we're just going to keep walking our dogs, we're just going to go somewhere else. So then the study asked them, actually, where are you going to go? And asked them to look on maps and stuff to actually find out where they were going to go. And of those people who were going to still walk their dogs, which were the majority, around half were going to go onto farmland, 41% areas that were nature reserved or designated for nature conservation as sites for special scientific interest and other terms that will mean more to some of you than others. And also heathland sites, which again are often really good for wildlife. So the key thing that's coming out of the research that we've done over the last 10 years is actually the issue is managing the demand for dog walking. You're not going to suppress it. And you may see this situation in Wales as well, that actually if you've got a local authority that decides we're going to have a beach ban, and they do ban the dogs completely from the beach, rather than just having an area where they can still go, those people are still going to walk their dogs somewhere. And some of the work that we're doing in England with the National Farmers Union is identifying that actually a local council or whatever will think, oh, we've solved the problem because we've banned dogs from our park, or we've got an on-lead area in our country park. And they think, oh, with fewer dog owners coming now, that's great. But the reality is you're going to displace these things, and actually the local farmers are having more of an issue. So it's actually joining up this thing that actually it's managing this demand. Because people are passionate about walking their dogs. Because if there is a restriction, the reality is that dog owners can do one of four things. And again, this is an uncomfortable reality for some people, but this is worldwide what happens. So say there's going to be an on-lead restriction or a no dogs area imposed for some reason, and sometimes these can be very good reasons. Around children's play areas, as I say, uncontrolled children around dogs isn't always a good mix. But actually, nobody's saying you shouldn't have restrictions on where dog owners go or what they do, because actually that's a way of being fair to everybody. But they can still keep coming. So, example, if you've got a beach where you're wanting a restriction during the day for people in the summer, if, say, there's an area where they can still go all the time, or because the dog ban it doesn't apply before 10 o'clock and finishes at 6 o'clock in the evening, they can still come, so they'll probably just adapt their behaviour and keep going there. Or if, for example, they just can't go to the site or it's all completely on lead, they might go somewhere else. And that might be a place where there's less hassle. But unless you manage that, that could be a place where there's more hassle. What we see with some of the work is that actually site managers on nature conservation sites have restricted dogs in certain areas, and that's pushed dogs to go actually to the places where they didn't used to go, and actually is causing more disturbance somewhere else. So it hasn't solved the problem, it's just shifted it. Or they could practically or politically challenge the restriction, and I'm sure you'll have seen cases of this where actually they'll write to their elected councillors, or they'll start doing freedom of information requests and all these sort of things because they're passionate about having access to land. Or they can ignore the restriction, because as much as people try, often there's ever fewer resources for doing enforcement. So what tends to happen is that the people who stick two fingers up at restrictions keep using the site, and the people who tend to try and abide by the law get shifted somewhere else. So that's reality. What we want to try and do through today is actually focus management that does these things. It's like pushes them somewhere else, actually, if that's the better option for them and the site manager, or actually can they keep visiting but do that in a way that causes fewer hassles for people and gives them a happy visit. Particularly as visitors, they want to come here and say, yeah, I came and I stayed and I spent money, and actually I had 7 really good dog walks where there wasn't hassle. I didn't feel I was going to be shouted at by a farmer or get into conflict because I didn't realise there were sheep there. And that's great for everybody.